So, t- what we've had for a lot of people, in many respects, is what I'm calling enforced celibacy. Has that impacted your, as we say, your style?
I guess it has, but I mean, at this stage, I think everybody has gone through a sort of shift in priority, do you
Yeah.
know? And at the moment, I feel like I'm very grateful for having this quiet time to myself to sort of, you
Mhm.
know, have some peace and quiet to create or to write or just to work on myself or whatever it might be without the heavy disco beat of the drag club constantly
Mhm.
running through my life as it was. It's been an interesting change, but I like it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's be honest. One of the great challenges for us all is to keep that snake hips that we normally have. I mean, do you find yourself? Because I know I do. We do comfort eating, we do comfort drinking, and we probably do other sorts of comfort as well. But look,
I think whatever it is that gets you through at this stage, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you find it all a bit surreal? Because in many respects, if you went back to 12 months ago, as we were talking, few of us would have believed we really would be having this conversation in a year's time. But at this stage, I think most people are saying, oh, we'll settle for a light at the end of the tunnel and hope it's not a train.
Yeah, yeah. I think surreal is the word. I mean, it's also unprecedented. It's also new, I think.
Yeah,
We're really going to have to rebuild the arts industry, the party industry, the
yeah.
entertainment industry, the nightclub industry once we come back out of this. And I think
Mhm.
the time is now to start sort of thinking and talking about what those things might look like.
Yeah, yeah. Have you branched out? Because I've been talking to a couple of other performers over the last few weeks. Now, your, shall we say, genre, it's
Hmm.
very much visual. It's it's colorful. It's energetic. It's really something that needs to be seen. Um, it doesn't necessarily lend itself to, say, radio plays the way other performers I know have been branching out to. Have you challenged yourself in that regard, or have you decided, well, this is my niche and I should really look at developing something for when the clouds lift?
Yeah, I think initially I felt a pressure to create online content, to create, to do Instagram shows, Zoom shows, as I saw kind of my other drag colleagues were doing. But something about it just didn't fully feel right to me. It didn't
Mm,
feel comfortable to me. And I realized how crucial and central the live element is to my work. And
mhm.
beyond that, it's about the audience. I need a group of people, whether that's three people at a party and we're having a sing song, or if it's on a
Yeah,
stage at the National Concert Hall with 100, 200 people.
yeah.
I need that energy exchange. I mean, I did a show online last night, and there's something just so uncanny about watching yourself performing. It just doesn't
Mhm.
feel natural in any way. Um, so yeah, I'm very much of the mindset that I'm going to try and challenge myself to work in the new digital mediums while acknowledging that I need to be working on stuff for exactly as you say, when the clouds lift, that I'll be able to come back sort of swinging. And I just, I'm so excited for that first burst back, whatever it looks like in a
Mhm.
year, possibly, when
Yeah,
we have our arts venue starting to sort of open up in a new way.
yeah. Did you ever feel like giving up?
I was worried that it was all going to go. I feel like I was never saying to myself, I don't want to do this anymore, but I was very anxious about, will this industry exist
Mhm.
after the pandemic? There still be a viability will it still be viable for performers to make a
Mhm.
living or try and make a living in the sort of the new normal? But
Mhm.
I think the response from arts venues, the response from arts bodies and cultural funding, and the I think the response has been quite helpful to some artists in that,
Mhm.
because production works differently now. Production costs work differently, so there's actually more money, more opportunities going to artists than there possibly would have been
Mhm.
pre-pandemic. Now that might be a bias, personal bias, because I've had some lovely work this year that was able
Mhm.
to be done remotely or safely. But I think that is to do with the shift from it's a knock on from arts venues being closed, etc.
Yeah, one of the elements that I think, and it must be terribly unfortunate for somebody like yourself because events are not on. I mean, I know that 2 years ago you did the electric picnic. I think you did the outing, and you probably would have done gay LGBTQ Pride last year had the event been on, and I think you would have been sensational there. But how much of that has, shall we say, knocked you off the rhythm?
It's strange because I mean the year used to be sort of there used to be these landmarks in the year
Indeed,
that you
yeah,
knew
yeah.
you'd have. You know, you had your, we always did a Christmas show with the Queer Cabaret. You know, you had your Pride events in June and all of that. I mean,
Yeah.
I think everyone's sense of time in general has just been knocked off by the pandemic and the lockdowns and all the rest of it. But it is really strange. You know, I think it's such a primal thing in humans. We need to get together. We need to gather. We need to let off steam. We need to release energy. We need to dance and roar and shout and be together in that way. So it's a very strange position to be in.
Yep. Now, I know certain people that we would both know have done quite well out of what we would call government arts grants. Have you had any support at all from the government, or have you been basically, go and look after yourself because you're in a different genre or you're in a different bracket?
Well, I haven't been lucky enough to get any of the Arts Council grants. As I said, I've sort of benefited from organizations, bodies, companies that I'd worked with before who then got COVID response kind of funding from another bigger body like the Arts Council, Dublin City Council or whatever. So indirectly, I've kind of benefited that way, but not directly from artist grants. It's difficult for drag and cabaret performers to apply for those artist grants because so often they're tied into theatre, live music, spoken word, or poetry, that don't fully encompass what drag or cabaret sort of is. We're kind of a little bit out in the, we're a little bit in the dark still, I think, us cabaret performers when it comes to government support.
Yep. Well, it comes down to the Arts Council. I suspect there's not a lot of people who are what we would call drag entertainers represented on the Arts Council. I mean, we know we've got our good friend Keane O'Reilly,
Keane O'Brien.
Keane O'Brien from the project is well credentialed in the arts, but generally speaking, most of the people who are central to the entertainment at Pride, I suspect, probably don't get much representation and are still seen as a bit, how can I put it, pantomime.
Well, yeah, I think it's a tricky one because one of my favorite things about cabaret and drag performance is that it doesn't always have that same sheen and polish and budget that theatre does. Yeah. But I think that makes it all the more accessible.
Absolutely.
For an audience. And it's really of the people and for the people. But I would suspect, and I don't want to get myself in trouble here, but I would suspect that, a lot of the people who work in the Arts Council, I doubt that they're a drag going kind or a drag show going kind. I'm not sure.
Not in public anyway.
Well, yeah.
Who knows what they do in private?
They could be there in drag. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I'd love to see that. I'd love to see the big boys, the big people in the Arts Council come to see a drag show.
Yeah, I tell you how we have to. I have to tell you this. A couple of 2 weeks ago, we were watching there, and you came straight into our consciousness because what we were watching was what I still think is probably the best TV show I've seen all season, which is It's a Sin. And what were they playing?
Yes.
What were they playing? Kate Bush running up that hill, and we just looked at each other and said, "There's Wren."
Wonderful.
Yeah. Did you watch the series?
I thought it was absolutely wonderful. I really liked it.
Tear-jerking, isn't it?
Very tear-jerking.
Yeah.
If I had a critique to offer, I feel that they could have focused a little more on the lives of the people, particularly women, and particularly the queer women, who looked after the people who were ill. But really, it was such an interesting representation of the time, and a real tearjerker.
Yeah, yeah. No, well, Jill, who I think was probably one of the standout. I mean, Ollie Alexander was the standout character, but Jill was, to me, was such a sensational character who never was
Yeah.
judgmental, just looked after people, and at the end of it all, what can you say? She was the only ones who appreciate really how much she did were people who died, which is very, very sad. Yeah,
Yeah, completely.
yep, yep. Let's move on now, just so that people understand exactly where we're coming from. You not only are representative of a genre of entertainment, I go so far as to say you almost, particularly as far as Ireland is concerned, you invented a genre of entertainment, which is queer cabaret. How did that come about? I know we've talked about this in the past, but how did that idea come about? Mm-hmm.
That's a lovely compliment, but I really can't take credit for inventing the genre. What I will take credit for is that I saw other kind of queer cabaret style shows that were happening. For example, Spice Bag, Glitter Hole, Undercurrent Queer Cabaret. But I felt like there was nothing that was happening monthly, regularly in the same place. It's like a Spice Bag or a Glitter Hole kind of came along every 3 months or so. Whereas I wanted somewhere that was a dedicated space every single month that queer people know that they can come, gather, watch some great entertainment, meet some like-minded souls, and have a hoolie.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was definitely kind of picking up the torch or carrying on the mantle. But I'm very, very proud of the work that we've done so far.
Not only that, but you gave a platform for some very talented and creative individuals who probably normally would not have been heard of. Give a big shout out to some of the people who you are happy you have discovered, and particularly through the work you've done there.
I would like to give a shout out to all of the drag kings who have ever performed at the Queer Cabaret. We have had a fantastic selection of drag kings who are, I feel, criminally underrepresented in the sort of queer entertainment sphere.
Totally.
I also, one of my favorite moments ever of the Queer Cabaret was, it wasn't necessarily a performance piece, but it was a piece of activism. A queer parental activist named Renee von Medding.
We do know Renee well, an excellent woman, isn't she? Yeah. Tell us about that one.
So I met Renee through a theatre project. We connected immediately. We got talking about the work that I was doing, and she was like, I'd love to perform or speak sometime. I said, absolutely. We had, our first edition was called King of Kings. That was back in January 2019. The second one was called Boss Women, and had an all-female, all-women lineup. And Renee, she gave this impassioned, powerful speech about how she and her wife Audrey had their two beautiful children, Ari and Ava, through reciprocal IVF, which means in Ireland under law that Audrey cannot be registered as a parent on the birth cert legally. It was just so rousing and so moving, and what really knocked my socks off is because I had learned a lot from Renee, but I kind of felt a little bit like, oh, I must have been the only one who didn't know. But everybody in that audience learned something new from that experience. And she finished by singing Maybe This Time from Cabaret, and she just brought the house down. So it was just one of those moments where, I mean, I think when you go to even a queer cabaret or a drag show, you're expecting to see glitz and glamour and high kicks and twirls and all the rest of it. I don't know if you're necessarily expecting to be politically charged and to be activated and to be riled up by sort of what's going on. And I've kind of, that really inspired me to try and keep a political, or to remember how political drag and queer theatre is.
Yes, well, Renee appeared at 2019 Pride. She shared that message with the audience then, and I think I wasn't aware of it, and I don't think most people were aware of it, and I think it's incredibly important, and that's what we're missing now with some of these events not happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
You also did the Fringe Festival, didn't you, with our equally good friend Blóithín de Burca, and again, that was quite a political event, wasn't it?
It was a very political event. It was myself and Philippa Ryder and Ola Majikatulmi, and the three of us were there to speak about with Blá about identity. Fascinating evening, and I mean, again, a crossover between sort of queer representation, theatre and the arts, and activism. I think there's something really potent about that mix.
Yeah. Well, we should mention that Blóithín is a very funny woman. She's a very smart woman, of course, as well.
Very clever,
perhaps like yourself, a Gaeilgeoir.
Yes, Tá Gaeilge agam not quite as líofa as Blá would be.
Yeah.
But I mean, I trained to be a primary school teacher in a former life, so you have to have good Gaeilge.
Yeah. Well, that's why. Do you know what? We've even developed a song for you as a result of that. Would you like me to just give you the first couple of bars?
Give me a blast, yeah.
Drollen, 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 Drollen. So perhaps we could even get a couple of verses added to that one as well.
We must, yeah. I'll tell you the story of Drollen, because you mentioned at the start there's I'd have at least 3 names on the go.
Yeah.
So Avoca Reaction is my drag name, my stage name. Wren Dennehy is my chosen name, and then Drollen came about because I was applying for a job as a nanny working with young people. Okay. And a friend of mine who had worked in a similar job said very cleverly, put your Facebook and your Instagram name as Gaeilge, or change it so they can't find you if they search you, just
smart
in case
move,
anything.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what the Irish for Wren was, and I googled it, and it was Drollen, and my surname is Dennehy, and that's O'Donoghue, and Drollen O'Donoghue I just think sounds wonderful. If I ever write a book, my pen name will be Drollen O'Donoghue.
Well, just on that note, because I used to be a bit of a Gaeilgeoir myself, and I was thinking of all those people who perhaps might have to have a staycation this year. And if you had a staycation into, and you decided to go to the Gale Talk, now that could be a bit challenging. And I looked up what would be the Gaeilge for the male appendage.
Oh,
wait for it. It's called bod. Tordum the bod, which just happens to be the diminutive for Brian O'Driscoll.
Oh, of course.
Tordum the bod.
Tordum the bod. That's Amy Huberman says that every night, does she?
Yeah. So, and I also discovered if you happen to be, say, a heroin addict in the Gale Talk, that's much more challenging because there doesn't seem to be an Irish word for heroin.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. I'm sure we could. I'm really in heroin I got. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah. So anyway, let's move on. Wren. The Paddy's Gay Springtime Festival. What's it going to be all about? Who's going to be on it? What can we expect?
Oh, I'm so excited for this show. So we have got a crack team of drag queens, drag kings, drag everything in betweens, our usual kind of queer cabaret family favourites, including Ben Pantera, Enter the Night, Goblins, Coco Chanel number 5, Marion Mary the 6th, and myself hosting. We have 3 special guests. We have Osaro of the Fried Plantains Collective, Annie Queeries, and Sarah Devereaux, aka the DirtBird of Spice Bag. The whole show is going to be streamed in 3 acts, each act with a different theme. It'll be all edited beautifully by a wonderful drag queen called Lavender, who's also who's a graphic designer in their other life. So you can expect Irishness, references to Italia 90, Niamh Kavanagh's Eurovision winning in your eyes, the real Irish celebration. Sort of, it's classic Paddy's Day with a queer twist.
What's the platform? Is it going to be coming through on Facebook like you had in the past, or how will you be doing that?
Our plan at the moment, we're still in development for the tech side of the show. We think we're going to stream it on Twitch so that we can have myself hosting live and then have the pre-recorded elements in between. Because I've watched some shows that are totally pre-recorded and it does sort of lack the fizz and the excitement of something live. So I believe I'll be hosting live and then we'll show each act as it comes.
Well, one way, and I'm only throwing this out there for consideration, if you did Zoom, you could have everybody there seeing each other and we could all bounce around and dress up just exactly like they used to do with Rocky Horror.
Yes, actually, that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, so as I say, one of the things I found is that Online is fine depending on the context. But if you want to, shall we? I think engagement is incredibly important. It'd be great to say, "Oh, look over there. There's Jim, and he's wearing a cowboy outfit, and so on." And that idea appeals to me. While we can't go out,
yeah. I think that's the trickiest thing at the moment. Really, is you know you can make the art and film it, but you can't. It's much more difficult to create the sense of togetherness.
Sure. Yeah. So the important thing for all those fabulous people out there is, when is it going to be on? Of course, it says Paddy's Day, which and what time is it going to be on?
So it's going to be Paddy's weekend. It's Friday the 19th. It's going to be streamed at 8 p.m. And if you go to our Facebook event page, which is the Queer Cabaret Paddy's Gay Springtime Spectacular, or you can search for us on Eventbrite. The ticket link is there. We are working on a donation basis.
Of course.
It'll be a free streamed event essentially, but we are asking for donations from the queer loving public to support our editor and all of our artists during this tricky time.
And will there be new acts that we might be looking to see, that we might be keeping an eye and an ear out for the first time?
Yeah, well, I mean, not for the first time, but one of our newer performers, who's this sort of superstar juggernaut, goes by the name of Annie Queeries, and she's just one of the most beautiful faces to ever come out of Dublin drag. She's also ferociously intelligent, extremely funny. I really think Annie is going to be a
legend. Yes. And you, as those of us who know you and have seen you, you are legendary for your stylish costumes. Can we expect that standard will continue?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, one of the benefits of lockdown is I've had more time to work on makeup and costuming and styling skills. So I think things have only gotten grander and more glitzy and more glamorous in the last year. So, yeah.
And I mentioned you're a big, you're highly respected as an interpreter of the works of one Kate Bush. Have you branched out so that there might be other artists that we might appreciate you, shall we say, reinterpreting their work?
Certainly. So I'm actually having in my back pocket for when we reopen is a sort of a Avoca one-person show, not a cabaret. But essentially, it's Avoca sings ... and each week or month will be a different artist. So I'll, with a small band, cover Kate Bush, Peter Gabriel, Celine Dion, Lady Gaga, whoever it might be.
Anyway, you have been listening to the fabulous Wren Dennehy, aka Avoca a Reaction, aka Drollen. We look forward to catching up with you again for that seminal day of the year, Paddy's Day, for the Paddy's Gay Springtime Festival. In the meantime, Wren, stay fabulous and stay safe.
You too, Mick. Thanks for having me.
My world that I want to have a little pride in. My world, and it's not a place I have to hide in. Life's not worth a damn till you can say I